And we are on the air everywhere. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 650. This is the pre-show. This is for Monday, the 2nd of July, approaching Independence Day. A lot of people have some long weekend action going on here, but not us. We are in service, working for you on this 2nd of July. Kevin Selly is in service, working for you as well.
Are you writing promos now? Is that what's...
I'm babbling away until somebody shows up.
Oh. We have, you remember Country Boy Eddie, of course.
Yes.
The Wichita Falls equivalent of that, of which there is no equal, of course, but the Wichita Falls equivalent of that is the show called Texoma Country Morning. That airs here. It's not live. It's recorded each afternoon, but it airs here at 5 a.m. until 5:30. And it's three guys, and one of them, who did it for years and years and years and years and years, describes the program this way. He says, this show is three guys sitting around talking until they think of something to say.
That's pretty much what you got here. Awesome. So, Kim, you are the anchor of choice this evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing tonight, James?
Good. Mr. Peters, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I would have been doing a little better if I got more than 0.03 of an inch of rain today.
Oh.
It's kind of like, it's just a teaser.
Brian had been doing this long enough not to let that get him down. Brian?
Sir.
I said, I think you would have been doing this long enough for that not to get you down. You've had
just
years of disappointment of rainfall.
Well, it's just that my forecast recently has had much higher numbers than most of my colleagues. Like, I tend to go with 60 and 70% a good deal. I hate 50%.
Why do we even use numbers in the summer?
Kim will tell us that. She's going to give you more numbers, right, Tim? Probability numbers.
Probabilistic. That's the word of the day, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Probabilistic. Everybody say that 3 times real fast. No, our dilemma, Kim. We say that. I love that tweet from the Weather Service in Nashville. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
What'd they say?
That was awesome. It said today's forecast hot and humid with scattered afternoon storms. Then underneath that it said Control C, and then below that Control V, Control V, Control V.
Tuesday Control V, Wednesday Control V, Thursday Control V. Yes. Well, did you see the one? I think it was on Twitter about the seasons in the South, James?
No.
Oh yes, it was tremendous. I'll have to see if I can find it.
So we are hearing feedback off one of our guest channel with no video. Kim, you have muted her.
And can you invite Ellen, James?
I did.
Oh.
And if I need to, we can email the link, but I did invite her the traditional way.
She might be needing an email.
That's crossed out.
Let me do that.
What's this called? Hold on 1 second.
Almost show title. So what's this called?
That's awesome.
And can't use the selected camera without a working camera. The other.
That doesn't sound good.
No. This is going right down the tubes.
At least they have some time. They have some time to figure it out.
No, we got 9 minutes. And for those that don't know, this is not the show itself. This is the pre-show. This is the time of the show where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say outrageous things. And we try and get our guests on this platform, which can be a challenge.
Somebody called John Scala and asked for his manual for the UCam. Remember that one?
Brian, we actually use Hangouts on the air today for the thing I do in the morning.
Yeah.
We Skype. So the new version of Skype on the Mac, you can't even choose the audio input. You have no ability to choose.
What? Wow.
And they say it's like, it's making our apps simpler and easy to use. That would be the equivalent of selling televisions where you can't change the channel, you know? It's
not a bug. They're making it that way?
It's a feature.
So what, like the onboard mic for the computer, or what is it?
Yeah, this is whatever you got punched in is the main audio source in your settings. And so for the way I do television, I use a program called Wirecast, which is a virtual switcher, and it basically becomes a virtual webcam and virtual audio, and you've got to use that source for it to be in sync. If you don't, your lips are moving and the audio doesn't match that. So we just that did it. I mean, that ended Skype.
It's RL.
Hangouts, and I had great fear that it would be like this, like the WeatherBrains pre-show with the producers back there. But they actually got it on the air. So thumbs up for our producers working the morning shift.
Yeah, I know Chasers are using Hangouts, at least for a while. I haven't checked with them lately, but some years ago they were.
But anyway, we have to be able to route specific audio and video. Like for this session, it's got to be very specific to make this work, because I have to be able to route the audio back down the line so everybody can hear these marvelous drops like this.
Let's get social. With social media, where we can spread the word and grow our reach.
You better stop that before our guests run. Drops like this.
Chemtrails.
In fact, I need to. I got so many things in this.
Quiet, numbskulls! I'm broadcasting.
Where's the? Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, I might play this one tonight. See, I pull out these classics from Kevin that he produced years ago, and for people that are new to the show, they've never heard it before, and they think it's all new. So, only how old is Matthew now, Kevin?
He will be 18 in October.
Oh, no, can't be.
Because he was like, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old when he cut these things. And now he is on the verge of adulthood here. Wow, there's some classics I've got in here. This
is the second monster storm that slammed into the Northeast.
I'm not even going to go down this path. Oh. Freddie Cannon. Freddie Cannon in here.
Well, she comes from Tallahassee.
It's the Tallahassee Lassie song for our Florida State friends.
Oh.
Brian used to dance on the tables when he was in college to that song.
In college?
When I was in college, that far back, we didn't know what dancing on tables was.
You barely had dancing back then, right?
Right.
So I've invited Ellen via email with the link and also via the traditional way. So hopefully she didn't think I was just some random creeper emailing her, which is always a possibility.
Click this link, Ellen. Yes.
Well, we did a test earlier, but I don't know. We know this is just going to prove how intelligent she is.
No, the smarter, for those that don't know, the smarter you are, the higher IQ you have, the lower the chance we get you on the show here.
Right.
Yes. And I can guarantee that's what's going on with Ariel. He is much too smart to be hanging out with the lot of us. And we tested earlier. It was perfect. But of course, things never translate completely.
Yeah. Somehow the live hangout is a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing we used for television this morning was not the over the air hangout like this. It was just a one-on-one thing, which is a little simpler maybe, but they got it right on the air, so I'll give them credit. But yeah, the Skype thing, that is just, I mean, what's the matter with these people? I mean, all these podcasters use Skype for production, and they just can't use it anymore.
I'll be darned. That's amazing.
And the application itself looks like something that looks like they're trying to make it a Snapchat, something for 12 to 24-year-olds. And I guess they're interested in that demo and not the people that use it professionally. But a lot of people do. A lot of podcasters still use it. And so who knows?
Yeah, we're here. Oh my gosh, but I don't hear volume.
Yes.
Sorry for the drama here. Let's get the Weather Service Topeka logo thing. Oh, yeah. All right, can you hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. What are you doing?
We are working on. We have 3 minutes to go. Awesome. Okay, let's get this camera set up so that.
Oh, this sounds like it's going to be a classic to me.
Somehow, one of the greatest shows ever tonight.
Would you mind, Brian? This is Brian Berg. He'll be joining us shortly. If you want to, what can we do to get this? Here's this.
Yeah, it looks like you guys are fine. Was it just your conference room wasn't working?
We figured out an alternative here. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So is there a way you can sit and we can put the sign behind you on the show? I think you have to leave it over here.
Not at all. No. Nope. So.
And then one of you sit over there, and Ryan will sit here.
Looks like these guys have been in the WCM liquor cabinet. Brian, you have one of those.
All right. Let's see.
How about this?
How does this work? We're going to all be very comfy when we have 5 people in here shortly. So, all right, Tommy, we're
things are about to get really fun over at the Weather Service Forecast Office in Topeka.
No.
Wow.
Thank you very much, Tommy. All right, see you later. Okay, bye.
Yeah, this. So, Brian, what, did you have a private key to your liquor cabinet there when you worked at the Weather Service in Birmingham, or what?
Brian Bunker over here. So, our pathway students will be joining us. So, Brian Berg will be coming back soon.
We have too many Brians here.
Yeah, we're too many Brians.
Brian.
Ellen is working on getting on. I think
Rick
he's
is
in
having
progress.
difficulties.
Even our own Rick Smith, who's on the show every week, just said he's got trouble. So, wow. And we were holding
There
for about
she is.
another.
Hey, did you just get out and get back in, or did you have to reboot?
I'm just using my phone instead. So.
Okay. Well, you could try rebooting that computer. Have you ever done a hangout on that computer?
Yep.
Oh, well, then,
I did like 3 test ones just in case, but that's why we
weird.
have backup plans.
Oh, all right. Well, it sounds good. Looks good.
And we are 15, 13, 12, 11, 10 from television. So once we get the TV folks join us, we'll start the show.
Say all the bad words now.
Yeah, if you need to cuss, you got 2 seconds. And hello, welcome to our television friends. It is Monday night, and you know what this is. The radar's calming down for those watching on the television side. This is WeatherBrains, our weekly venture into the deep world of atmospheric science and other foolishness. So thank you for joining us on TV. I think we have the guests here, but we're missing Rick Smith. He's working on some technical issues, but I think we can start this sucker here. And again, just a reminder for everybody on the show tonight, the people mostly listen to this. This is the dominant audience is an audio podcast audience. So be sure and don't make any strange noises, bodily function noises, anything else, if that would be marvelous, because they all fuss at me when the audio's bad. So let me get the recorders going here. Recorder number 1 and recorder number 2. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, it's WeatherBrains. This is the weekly show that's all about weather. This is episode number 650 for Independence Day Eve. This is Monday, July 2nd. Thanks a lot for joining us. And I have a funny feeling this might be a very special show, but we've got some of the regulars online with us, including Brian Peters, the internationally beloved meteorologist. Brian, how are you spending your 4th of July?
Quietly. since I have to sleep for the early morning shift on July 5th, I hope nobody in my neighborhood will fire fireworks, but that's not likely to occur.
Now, there's always some bonehead, some knuckleheads. They'll get those fireworks out there midnight, 1, 2 a.m. They just go on all night. That's just the way it is.
So I'll just resort to drugs.
And that is a show title right there. We got a show title right off the bat.
Right out of the gate.
Kevin Collins, our friend Kevin Collins.
Oh. That's really funny because it's been like 2 or 3 days ago that popped into my head. I used to do that for the first couple of years of the show. You're going to have to explain it now. That was 13 years ago.
Wow. I'm so Kevin used to be Kevin Collins when we worked together in television a few years ago. And he decided at some point along the way to use his actual last name, which is Kevin Selly. And you in my heart somehow will always be Kevin Collins. I don't know why. So
it's kind of funny because we've known each other, like 25 years almost now, I think.
Yes.
So apparently the last thing I ever did to impress you was at that time 25 years ago when I was Kevin Collins, and nothing since then.
So let me ask you this now. So what made you or led you to the decision to go back to Kevin Selly? When did this happen, in Dallas? Because you were Kevin Collins in Virginia, right?
It started in Austin, Texas, and then I carried it there because remember I went there on the radio doing Magic 96 afternoons first, and for some reason we decided to keep it going. I guess for consistency from the radio in Birmingham, and then I was Kevin Collins in Richmond, and then I got married, and that became even more confusing, not for me but for my wife, because she started using Tracy Selly. So when we went back to Dallas for TXCN, we switched back, and that explanation is now your new show title.
That's awesome. All right, so Aubrey, let's see. I see edit bay number 4, maybe 3.
Yep, 3 or 4. I'm not sure.
Yep. Pick a number, any number.
Yep.
What's happening up there? It looks hot. I was watching the Red Sox play the Nationals, and it just looks hot.
My brother is actually at that game. He is a Yankees fan at a Red Sox Nationals game.
So he's pulling for the Nationals, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he got some tickets, and he texted me earlier and he said, "Oh my gosh, it's hot." And I said, "Well, tell me something I don't know." So yeah, it's hot here. It was more of a dry heat in Oklahoma. So coming home to a little bit more humidity has not been the best, but it's hot.
It's hot. In fact, everybody, before we start the show, I'm sorry. We must stop the show for just a moment for this special message. Stay tuned, everybody.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
From the newsroom inside worldwide headquarters of WeatherBrains International, this is a heat emergency update.
Okay, live. Standby graphics, standby effects, standby cameras 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Standby HD Superjet Copter 17, microwave truck and satellite feeds locked. Cancel mix minus to talent. We're live in 3, 2, and cue announce.
We go live now to our reporter who is live on the scene.
It's hot. Stay inside, have a drink of water, and get over it.
So, Kevin, how old was Matthew when that was done?
Gosh, I don't know. That could be 6 or 7 years ago, probably. He's about to turn 18. Is there a date on the file? I wouldn't even know.
I got it in the soundboard. There's no date on there, but I'll look it up. But no, we should start reminding people, if you see any stupid heat tips on your local television station, please record the audio and send it to us. We are especially looking for the anchors that get that look on their face like they have gas, and they say it's a heat emergency. Go into an air-conditioned room and drink water. Please send that to us. We'd love to have that. Let's see. Kim Cloco, I guess, Dr. Coclo McLean. I can't say your name. Coclo McLean.
I know. It's all of the KL sounds that you can possibly want in a combination name.
But anyway, I'm turning the floor over to you to bring in our guests before they really run and hang up on us.
Well, sure. All right. I will happy to do that.
We have to introduce Ellen also.
Yeah. Aubrey, would you like to introduce your broadcaster cohort from this past week?
Yes. My, you may have seen her in a previous version of Oklahoma Adventures with Aubrey and Ellen on Twitter last week. So this is my partner and work cohort from the SPC testbed, Ms. Ellen Baca, coming to us from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hey, Ellen.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. And just so you know, Aubrey is a phenomenal tour guide and travel agent. He had like every moment perfectly scheduled. I think we saw all the best things in Oklahoma in the week, along with the severe weather test bed. So,
yep. And my coworkers here would say, yep, typical.
It was impressive. It included hiking in really, really hot temperatures. I was very impressed with you both that you made that decision.
My favorite part is that she waited until after we were running around the Wichita Mountains to be like, man, I'm really glad we didn't see any tarantulas. Yesterday, they posted on their Facebook page that there were tarantulas. And I was like running through the brush all day. So it's smart. She waited until we were in the safety of the car.
I'm like, at what point should I say something?
So really, we're just very glad here in Norman that you guys both survived our hazardous weather test bed experience.
With our voices, we both still have our voices, which I think is actually kind of exciting.
Hey, Kim, before you move on, we need to get a ruling from James. James, there's a little bit of a problem with Ellen being here, and I'm going to explain it very quickly. But when we were doing a Hangout test earlier today on her Google Hangouts page, she has one of the graphics, I assume, from her promotions department. There's 5 people in that office, and there's a picture of each of them and with their names, and it says combined 104 years of tracking.
Wait a minute. What?
Now, WeatherBrains is tracking the tracker. We track what the consultants track, so you can track along with us. Does that make sense? Here's WeatherBrains lead tracker, Kevin Selly.
So we'll have to all decide if she can stay or not. I'm a little confused about this because tracking as a thing as we know it has really only been around for 2 or 3 years. So I don't know where they get 104 years of tracking, but y'all can decide. Yeah, we've done the Hangout test, so I suppose we should let her stay, but I just needed to get a ruling on that before we move on.
I vote her in. She can stay, and we'll investigate this tracking situation later.
Okay. Sorry, Kim.
No, that's fine. That definitely needed to happen. Really quickly, I do want to say I miss having you both. It was fun to do the show all together last Monday. If I feel so alone here, just broadcasting as an individual without my group. It's fun to have you both with us on the show today. And we'll come back around, I guess, and get a little bit of debrief from both of you on your thoughts on the test bed and the experiment. I know that we keep saying we need to have a show about facets, and we really, really do. Now that you both have been through the experiment, do you feel like it needs at least an hour to probably even explain fully what you were doing out here?
Yes, we need a whole show.
Yeah, a whole show, if not more, because I think all the science and the research that you guys have done behind it to get it going and get it to even the level we saw it was incredible. So.
And I would love to hear from a forecaster and an emergency manager on, their kind of take on it, also to kind of combine with what we went through and their thoughts behind it also.
Yeah, well, that'd be a great show to bring the whole team together of folks who've been participants, whether it be from the forecasting side, creating the probabilistic products, to the end users, the emergency managers or broadcasters. You guys, trying to make use and heads or tails of what the forecasters are giving you. So we'll come back around and I'll ask you at least to give a sneak peek on what it was that you were doing and talk a little bit about your feedback, what you are excited about, or your thoughts on some of the future technologies being developed. For now, let's see. In the forecast office in Topeka, Kansas. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having us here. Well, he's gone right now. He'll be back in a minute. But
all right.
He ran. One of our guests finally ran. We knew that was going to happen.
I tried to reel him back in, but he just kept going. So
well, that's the Ariel Cohen that we all know.
Know and love.
Yeah, know and love. So Ariel Cohen, I'll give a brief introduction for him, and then when he comes back, we can talk with him a little bit more. Ariel Cohen is the SU at the Topeka, Kansas forecast office, and here he is. Welcome back. Just giving a quick intro to you guys. So Ariel and I also had the joy of being graduate students together at the University of Oklahoma back in the day. So Ariel, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, Kim and everyone. It's great to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so I'll just hand this off to you guys first by Ariel, would you like to start by giving us an introduction to a little bit of your job history, your trajectory, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you're so excited to talk with us about tonight. This is actually a topic that Ariel brought to us on mentorship programs. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background.
Certainly, real fast, I want to introduce to my left over here, this is Ryan Bunker. He is the Pathways intern here at the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Topeka, Kansas. And we'll talk a little bit more about his role here and the program that he's involved in. But a little bit of background about me. I have been a weather nerd for my whole life. You may be able to tell with some of my enthusiasm. I think by the time I was 7, I got my first weather radio from my mom, playing KIG 86 in Columbus, Ohio, broadcasting from the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Wilmington, Ohio. I made sure I could do the hourly weather roundups by heart by about age 8 or 9 when I had decided I'd one day work for the National Weather Service. I think it was by 8th grade I decided I wanted to be a science and operations officer in the Weather Service. I absolutely loved teaching and science, and I started emailing lots of SUs across the Weather Service by the time I was in 8th grade, at least 20 of them. And there was one at the Tulsa Forecast Office, Steve Amburn, who was answering all of my bizarre questions as an 8th grader, asking about HP supercells and anchored convection over orographically enhanced flows. And it just, but most of them had little interest in terms of talking to me, but one did. One had a lot of interest. That was Steve Amburn. And ever since 8th grade, I kept in contact with him going through high school. By the time I was in 12th grade, I worked at the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The MIC, Steve Piltz there. Steve Amburn were gracious enough to have me working there during the spring of 2003. I got to go live on weather radio for all of the tornado warnings that I worked, and it was a lot of just a true dream come true to get to do that. After that, I went to Ohio State University, in particular as right after my sophomore year, wasn't even 2 years out of high school, when I was working at the Storm Prediction Center, Severe Storms Laboratory as a research experience for undergraduate student, working at SPC as a late teenager in a student internship role was a phenomenal experience. So many mentors there in that program that Daphne Ledoux runs, that Kim as well was a part of actually 1 year before. It was interesting. We all heard about Kim all summer long, actually, the year after. She was a true prodigal child, actually, of the program. And so it was really cool to one day, after doing all of that work as an RU student, actually be going to grad school with Kim, which is really cool. I went to the University of Oklahoma. We started in the same year, 2006. And shortly afterward, as I was completing my master's degree, I became a general forecaster at the National Weather Service in Great Falls, Montana. I became a forecaster at the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida. Shortly afterward, in the Tropical Analysis and Forecast branch, I went off to Jackson, Mississippi to become a forecaster there afterward. Then I worked for 6.5 to 7 years or so at the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. During that time, it was a dream come true to come back to the place where I started as a late teenager and got to be reunited with all of these people who were tremendous mentors to me. I went through and completed my PhD work at the University of Oklahoma while working full-time rotating shifts at the SPC. There was never a day that went by when I wasn't always learning from so many phenomenal individuals. After that, after several years working at the Storm Prediction Center, got a chance to work some really memorable events, worked the midnight shift with Rich Thompson leading up to the April 27, 2011 tornado outbreak, April 28th of 2014, I believe, major Great Plains tornado outbreak of April 14th of 2012, a bunch of other ones that are just incredibly memorable. And then I became the Science and Operations Officer at the National Weather Service in Topeka after working 10 years full-time in the Weather Service. And I've been here for the last, well, it's going to be pushing a year soon enough. And it's been a wonderful experience, learning every day, work with some phenomenal people here at the Topeka Weather Service office, and really glad to be on the show and talk to you more about it today.
Yeah, so it's great to have you, and I think it's really neat the variety of experiences that you've had in your career span. Montana and forecasting for there. Then you went straight to the National Hurricane Center, which is a very, very different kind of experience, to Jackson, and then to the Storm Prediction Center, now Topeka. You really have run the gamut of many of the different weather regimes available to us in the continental United States. So what a really beautiful variety of career experiences you've already had in 10 years. For those who were following along with the story, I do want to highlight a lot of that was, moving around. You'd go from one place for a year, do like a year in Montana, and then go out to the Hurricane Center for a year. And this is a way, one of the things we'll be talking about is, mentorship, but also just career advancement. This is a way in the Weather Service that you do get career advancement, is by being willing to throw yourself into very different kinds of roles and being open to those new experiences. So it's been really great, Ariel, that you've pursued that for yourself. So that's a really great summary of your career trajectory. What was it that recently you had some interactions with an important mentor of yours that partially inspired you wanting to come forward and talk about mentorship this evening? It's actually with somebody who was a recent guest of ours on WeatherBrains. Tell us about that.
Most definitely. As many of you know, in the weather community, we celebrated the retirement of Science Support Branch Chief Steve Weiss, who worked a 46-year-long career in the National Weather Service, around 44 years of that at the National Severe Storms Forecast Center, CELS SPC. Steve Weiss exemplifies what it means to be a mentor. Kind of taking a step back, as Kim mentioned, I've certainly had a lot of diversity in my career, and I would not have had a chance and the ability and the skill set to be able to accomplish this without the dedicated mentorship from so many phenomenal individuals. And honestly, Steve Weiss exemplifies what it means to be a true, altruistic, caring, patient, empathetic leader, mentor of mine who's been there for about half my life, literally. Someone who has, taken the time to show me isobaric analysis implications on boundary positions, sit there with me talking about life experiences and how an integrated consideration about everything between professional life is all important, and having balance and having friends and having an important community, that bondage of bonds where we're able to work together, help each other out, is really how we go forward. Steve Weiss has been someone who on late afternoons and evenings after work, I could go and just talk to him about absolutely anything, learn from him, got inspiration for my PhD work, actually studying Southeast United States low Cape, high shear, severe weather environments. He was the inspiration for that, along with my work in Jackson. And honestly, that care, that selfless care, when you reach out and help someone out and mentor them along the way, that's Steve Weiss. He's really the pinnacle of the essence of what I mean when I talk about servant leadership, this care for others to bring them forward. And I want to emulate those behaviors and really bring them forward too. And so I'm glad you mentioned him as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So what you really wanted to come on the show today to talk about is this mentorship piece. And could you just really quickly highlight, you named several programs that you had been a part of through the years. Can you describe what those various programs are? Starting with, I think the REU was the first formal program, although you did do some interning at the Tulsa office before that point, but I think the REU was the first formal program.
That's definitely correct. I was a volunteer at the National Weather Service in Tulsa as a high schooler, and they really gave me a lot of hands-on experience there working the public service desk, effectively as an intern met tech. It was a phenomenal experience. But then as a research experience for undergraduate students, program that Daphne Ledoux runs there at the Weather Center in Norman, that was my chance to really get fully immersed in MCS research, work with Mike Caniglio, Steve Corfiti, Sarah Corfiti, on studying the severity of MCSs. And that was the springboard for a weather and forecasting paper I got to publish shortly out of undergraduate school, actually. And I was really able to learn that with working together, I could pursue my passions, work with a group of students, and under fantastic facilitators, learn so much about the atmosphere, so much about what we can do to really, accomplish our mission of protection of life and property through research to operations. It was just an amazing experience. Many years later, actually 12 years later, I had a chance to mentor Ryan over here, who was also an REU student in the same program 12 years later, alongside Kim, Alan Gerard, and John Hart, the lead forecaster at the Storm Prediction Center. And passing the torch down, it's a phenomenal experience. I absolutely loved it. But there are many other programs as well. The NOAA Hollings program is a key program that gives students a couple of years of immersion into various areas across NOAA, research facilities, National Weather Service offices, so many opportunities for students to get hands-on professional experience, develop those connections, networking, in order to really bridge the gap into professional life from school, which is so critical to really form those bonds at an early age. It's phenomenal, and crossing those challenging tall barriers of interacting with interacting amongst generational gaps is phenomenal. You learn so much more from experienced people. And NOAA Hollings, I've had NOAA Hollings students, Matt Flournoy, one of them who's been a phenomenal student, who's now in the PhD program there at OU. I had other REU students as well, but also want to mention the National Weather Service Pathways programs within NOAA. That's an opportunity for students to get right involved working at Weather Service forecast offices, develop those connections. Now, our Pathways student here this summer is Ryan Bunker, so he's had some experience with me both as his REU mentor as well as Pathways here, and it's a chance to really get involved in forecast office operations. Ryan's been alongside others and under supervision from others here, getting experience doing upper air, learning about National Weather Service forecast operations, working on research under some mentors who you'll meet shortly. And those programs are absolutely critical. And, maybe we'll have a chance to have Ryan talk a little about his experiences in a moment. As far as other programs, there are other more informal opportunities, volunteering at your local National Weather Service office or media markets as well, local research center in meteorology, Severe Storms Lab, AOML, for instance. Just kind of reaching out and getting to know people who you might learn so much from one day. It can be scary as a student reaching out and talking to experienced people. I was certainly terrified my first day sitting in Storm Prediction Center operations as a 19-year-old, but it just was so humbling, and knowing that these people were were at one point in the past in my shoes, and now I'm trying to grow into their shoes and in my own shoes was a really special experience. And so I'll quit rambling there. That's a great list
of programs for people to be aware of. You've covered a lot of ground between REU, the Research Experiences for Undergraduates program, Hollings, which they can do some related work, but it's much more closely tied to NOAA. The Pathways program for the Weather Service, and then, of course, volunteering at different kinds of offices. Ellen, when you were coming up, wanting to do broadcast, did you do any of this sort of volunteering to get into your role, or have any mentorship programs you participated in to help guide you to the place you've landed?
Yeah, I think the key thing is interning for us. So a lot of job shadowing and a lot of interning. So I interned with someone that interned with James Spann. So Ginger Z was my primary mentor, and she's been phenomenal. And as you're saying, it's just so key to have someone that you can one-on-one talk to and have them give you the rundown and walk you through it. It saves you so much time, and it makes things so much clearer to have that tutor. So I think in every aspect, it's nice to have that.
Yeah, agree. It's really nice. That's awesome that Ginger Z was your mentor. I bet that she was a lot of fun to work with. But yeah, so Ariel, would you like to let's bring in Ryan now? And Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about your background, and actually, could you talk a little bit about the work that you did last summer in the REU program? And I think it'd be neat just to describe kind of what the program is and what it does from your perspective.
Right. Well, so I was born in Palm Springs, California, and then I lived in Mesa, Arizona for 20 years and ended up moving to Oklahoma to pursue meteorology. And so the research experience for undergraduates program, I actually stumbled across, and I applied for it and got it. And one of the projects listed was actually Ariel's project, where we were looking at nocturnal southeast tornadoes and using SCRAM, which Ariel will get into later, I'm sure. But it's an experience that I'm forever grateful for. It's changed my life, and like Ariel said, Daphne runs a great program. But to be able to see how not only how I interact with my mentor, like yourself, Kim, Ariel, Alan, and John Hart, the SBC, it's cool to see the relationships that other students have with their mentors and the growth that occurs from this program. I'm not going to lie, I was very, very, very nervous when I started because I've never performed research, and this was an experience for me to really get my hands dirty with performing not only good research, but performing something that's going to end up protecting life and property. And so we did just that. And the most important thing that I value from that program is that mentorship bond between the mentor and the mentee. I was always afraid to ask questions before, and the mentor that I had in Ariel and yourself, Kim, you guys made it easy for me to ask questions, and I really took to heart when somebody says no question is a dumb question. Well, I took that to heart and now I ask a whole lot of questions. But no, that program definitely changed my life for the better.
That's great. Wonderful. Yeah, and I think I'd like to highlight that for this project, it was really fun. Ariel came to me and asked if we could put together a project that was interdisciplinary. So we had Ryan, and then we had another student as well, David Nowicki from Mississippi, and he had an interest in psychology. So we actually came up with a project where we were looking at the SCRAM model. We described SCRAM actually on the show a little bit when John Hart was with us a couple months ago, but we can talk about that in a second. It's a short-term predictive model for severe storms, and it's probabilistic in nature, which is now Ellen's favorite word, everyone's favorite word on this show. But it's probabilistic in nature, and we were looking at how forecasters were going to understand the output, and would they trust it, and could they make decisions with it. And interestingly enough, the psychology of it was that there might be some challenges actually, and that forecasters have some preconceived ideas about severe convective environments in the Southeast and the kinds of parameters that tend to favor tornado development that maybe things aren't as likely as they seem they are, and then there are issues of trust with the tool. So that was it is something that's very, very important for trying to transition the work. And it's great that as an undergraduate, you've got that experience to do that. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Pathways this summer in Topeka.
Oh, well, with Pathways, I've been thrown right in. Depending on the shift that I work, I'm training for upper air, which that's something I only dreamed of as a kid, being able to see, pictures of these balloons and to know that, the sensor that's going on there, you're giving information to forecasters to help protect life and property. And so, to be able now to do that with somebody right next to me, that's really cool. I've also been involved with, updating different grids for like temperature and humidity and all this different stuff. I've even written alongside Ariel. We've written a few AFDs. I've been here during severe weather where I'm answering phone calls, where I'm calling people for verification of warnings. I mean, I've learned so much in my time here than I did really in my undergraduate career, just because you're learning new things every single day. It's never a certain pattern. You are learning something new every day, and the knowledge that I gained from all the other forecasters. There's a lot of great people here who've been very, very patient with me and have helped me along the way, and that's something that I can't wait to give back when I'm up in the chain. And it's been a great time here so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the summer as well.
That's great. I mean, the reality is getting into this field in whatever part of the business that people find themselves in, you don't get there alone. None of us do. And trying to seek out mentorship opportunities as early as you can really is helpful, but also seeking out opportunities to mentor, even if you don't feel like you necessarily have a specialized knowledge, being embedded in the field, you do more than you realize, and reaching out to mentor can change lives, which is, I think, is going to be part of what we'll talk with some of the other folks in your office about in a moment here, Ariel. But really quickly, I want to ask you to describe another piece of mentorship that you actually developed while you were at OU and at the Storm Prediction Center, the course that you developed jointly between the Storm Prediction Center and the University of Oklahoma. It was sort of a first of its kind forecasting class, which is interesting. You'd think that such a thing would have existed with all of the assets in Norman, but it really didn't. And you saw an opportunity to cross boundaries and to provide something to students that you didn't have when you were going through your program, and that you had to work for sort of on your own, and stepping into that. Tell us a little bit about the class that you put together, and we'll highlight for folks that they actually can access the materials for this class that you're going to describe, so anyone can take Ariel Cohen's class virtually.
I always dreamed of a world where we can bring everyone together who have experience in severe storms forecasting, operational meteorology, and this tremendous expertise, literally centuries combined of expertise at the Storm Prediction Center, and being able to effectively translate that to up-and-coming meteorologists, the next generation of meteorologists. I just thought that would be the absolute coolest thing ever. Certainly in many universities, there's a very strong focus in a lot of research areas, very pure academic areas, and operational meteorology has historically been something that is really learned on the job. But if there's a way to really integrate operations and research, academia together that truly could serve as effectively an incubator for research to operations, we really can make so much more progress as people know what they're getting into as they begin their career. So along those lines, I went to my old boss, Bill Bunting, the chief of operations at the Storm Prediction Center. I said, Bill, I'd like to put together a class. This was toward the end of my PhD. That brings everyone together, pretty much the essence of the National Weather Center, where we have all of these different components of the weather enterprise that can be bridged together in the physically co-located facility. And Bill said, make it happen. That was just an awesome thing. And Bill Bunting has also been an amazing mentor to me, especially as I've gone into management. And so I worked with Rich Thompson. He's a very well-known lead forecaster at the Storm Prediction Center, an amazing friend to me. Has taught me so much about severe storms meteorology. And I believe he's been on this show as well. His contributions to meteorology have been, I can't even name all of them. They're just phenomenal. And I worked with him and my PhD advisor, Stephen Cavallo, to organize this class. That was a graduate level course that we called Applications of Meteorological Theory to Severe Thunderstorm Forecasting. I started teaching that in the 2014-2015 school year. And instead of just making it the Ariel show, I wanted it to be the everyone show. I wanted, Roger Edwards, who's done tremendous amount of research on tropical cyclone tornadoes. I wanted to bring him in and have him teach his expertise area, because who better to talk about tropical cyclone tornadoes than Roger Edwards? Talk about the significant tornado parameter than the person who made it, Rich Thompson. We had Jeremy Grams come in and talk about severe weather outbreaks, and Jared Geyer, locate high shear environments, Corey Mead, moisture return enhancements to nocturnal tornado threats over the Great Plains, and Steve Corfidi on Corfidi vectors. I mean, it makes sense to have these big names, these giants in severe storms meteorology, John Hart, Scram System, instead of just talking about it, have the inventors talk about their area. And it turned into one of the most heavily attended elective courses in meteorology there in the University of Oklahoma, and students loved it. I loved teaching it. I loved, I was a little bit intense as an instructor sometimes, and it gave people a nice transition into what the real world could be like at times. A lot of hands-on drills, forecasting experiences, working with meteorologists from the National Weather Service, and ultimately it turned into a tremendous success. In the final year of teaching the class, I I figured that down the road I'm looking to move up into the management world within the Weather Service. Wasn't sure how long I would be staying there, and so I wanted to record the entire class from day one to the end, and we put together a video lecture series of 91 videos on severe thunderstorm forecasting, everything from the lapse rate tendency equation, stuff that I like to derive. Deriving was something fun that Kim probably can share plenty of stories about us doing together. And then everything from that to Steve Weiss teaching on severe storms, environmental analysis, the philosophy of forecasting. I encourage everyone to watch Steve Weiss's videos. I mean, you're talking about almost a half century of full-time Weather Service experience, and we're going to be able to learn from him forever. That's phenomenal, and I just absolutely love it. And so yes, we turned this into a video lecture series, 91 videos, all closed captioned, and so you can check those out and learn more from the experts. And it was a phenomenal experience to bring everyone together into what the Weather Center is all about: community. We're all looking out for each other. We all got each other's backs, and that's something I truly believe in. So
I mean, something that's really neat about the class, especially the way you've just described it, that I hadn't thought about it this way before, but what you've really created is an archive, a sort of time capsule of the people who were there in that environment at a certain time, and who helped to develop the Storm Prediction Center as we know it, really. And you're trying to capture their knowledge and the way that they came about their work and what it is that they've contributed. And these are the things that go beyond anything you could latently have sitting in a textbook. It's something that's a living, breathing archive that anyone can access at any time. And so it's not just mentorship for the students who are in your class, but it can be this important historical resource for our field. So I'm really pleased that is online and available to anyone who wants to see those lectures.
Right on the Storm Prediction Center website. If you go under outreach, you can get to the video lecture series from the SPC website. Ultimately, this has been the springboard for me into the Science and Operations Officer position at the National Weather Service. It truly is a position of integrated research and operations, teaching, being there as a mentor for the staff. And if it weren't for the experiences that I had at the Storm Prediction Center, I would not be able to do this. And so ultimately, it all works together in terms of bringing us to where we are. So
okay, well, with mentorship in mind, I know that when you proposed this, that you were going to be our guest, and it turned into a field of guests that you'd like to bring on from
we're
Topeka.
all scrunched in, so
yeah. Well, if you'd like to invite everybody in to chat with us for just a minute before we get back with our ladies from the hazardous weather testbed experience.
All right, let's go one by one. Let's see. Our first
Audra's first.
First one. All right, we're going to introduce lead forecaster Audra Henneke. We're going to try to get all 5 people. We had a little bit of technical difficulties earlier, so maybe some standing. So Audra Henneke is a lead forecaster here in Topeka, and I'll let her describe a little bit more about her background and how mentorship has been so critical for you in terms of your development into the National Weather Service and how you've given back as well. So if you wouldn't mind saying a couple things, then we'll introduce the others. Is that all right, Kim? That
yep,
order?
That's perfect. Yep.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to school at Penn State, and while getting my undergrad there, I started volunteering at the National Weather Service office in Sterling. So I did 1 summer there, and then I came back for what was known as the STEP program at the time. So by having 2 summers worth of experience, the hands-on opportunities that I had, it opened the doors to what I could visualize as a future career in the Weather Service. So that was really exciting. And my boss at the time, when I got hired in to the National Weather Service as an intern, said that my experience as a volunteer at another Weather Service office is ultimately what helped make me stand out amongst other applicants and ultimately helped me to get the job. So I'm forever thankful for that opportunity, and it just opened the door for me of just what opportunities are available for a career in the Weather Service.
I also want to mention that Audra has been a very prominent figure here in terms of developing the mentorship program along with Jennifer, giving opportunities to Ryan. Brian Berg, who we'll introduce in just a moment as well, has really very much spearheaded that program here at the National Weather Service in Topeka, making it possible for these opportunities to extend to the next generation of up-and-coming meteorologists. So thank you, Audra, as well, so much for all that you've done for us.
So guys, I have a question for you. Well, on that note, I mean, I'm interested. It sounds like it can vary. Forecast office to forecast office can have different levels of mentorship focus. This is something that your office has had to cultivate then, and it takes a lot of staff support to put together something like that. Can you describe what it takes on your end to make this program work?
Absolutely. We have the benefit of actually having a university within our forecast area and very close by to our office that does have a meteorology program. And I realize that not all offices have that, but then again, even me of working at the Sterling forecast office, there wasn't necessarily a university very close by for that. It just happened to be that that was close to home for me. And they still managed to cultivate program there. So you're absolutely right. It does require some dedication and focus to get it spun up, to advertise it, to make it available, and also coming up with a curriculum essentially, because you want to make sure that they're not just here and just sitting and observing and what you want to get them hands-on, because most of us learn by doing. And so by getting that experience, coming up with a curriculum so that we can get them as much of a diverse experience as possible during their time here, we know that that ultimately is what's going to help them get more experience and give them a better idea of what a National Weather Service career is actually like. So it does require some work, and we've had several iterations of making some tweaks and adjustments from one group of volunteers to the next, from semester to semester, but it's something that we open up for fall semester, spring semester, and open it up to the summer as well, so that we can try to reach out to as many hopeful students as possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us and telling us a little bit about your program there. I guess, Ariel, you want to continue your round robin?
Well, as Audra was mentioning, giving these opportunities to students, one of our pathway students who became an intern here in Topeka is now a general forecaster here at Topeka, also mentoring Ryan. This is Brian Berg. And Brian, I'll let you talk a little bit about yourself. I think we'll get everyone in, actually. Brian?
Hey, everyone. I was just a farm boy from central Kansas growing up. Decided to go to the University of Kansas to get my meteorology degree. But I'll be forever grateful for the Weather Service office there in Wichita, because to say that I was raw in meteorology prior to that is an understatement. I was very raw, but they were able, they let me join them for a summer, and I learned so much. They helped me develop my resume, and I'll forever be grateful, because when I applied for the pathways positions, rather than just being the ordinary college student that no one knows about, I was able to have those professional references from the folks down there. And obviously the staff here was able to call down there, and I had a good reference that really helped me to get my career going in the Weather Service. So I'll be forever grateful for the staff down there in Wichita.
Well, and now Brian's giving back, actually, and serving as a mentor now to Ryan, which is phenomenal, bringing him into a research to operations projects that involve community teamwork to learn more about processes that have major implications on life and property protection, and their work together is really passing the torch down, which is very special. So you have any questions for Brian?
Well, I guess just from your perspective, how edifying has it been to be able to pass that torch along? And I know it can seem so difficult to get into the Weather Service, but have you found that this is a really nice way to identify talent and to bring in talented people into the agency?
Oh, of course. You can, for the most part, you can tell day one, you can tell the passion of people in our field, whether they're very passionate about what they do or not. And it's been evident that Ryan here, he's very passionate on what he does. And it's just great working with him every day and passing on the knowledge that I've gained from other forecasters and being able to pass it along to him. It's been great.
Do you have any particular programs that you recommend that students should explore in your experience now, having been through your career trajectory, but also having seen students go through other programs? Anything that's your favorite?
For sure, the Pathways program, if you're able to get into the Pathways program, it is the absolute golden ticket into the Weather Service. I don't have any sort of graduate level coursework under my belt, so without that, getting into the Weather Service is kind of tough. So, but I was fortunate enough to get in as a pathway student, and then be able to get converted over to an intern. So that was my ticket into the Weather Service that way. So if any student out there has the opportunity to apply for a pathways position, and when I did, I applied across the entire country. Don't limit yourself to just 1 or 2 offices. Give yourself the biggest chance you can and apply to as many offices as you're able to.
Wonderful. This is really fun getting to see some of the personalities across the whole office. I don't know if in WeatherBrains
even more
this has been something we've done, but
we have more coming, Kim, actually.
All right, bring in more.
Another one of the mentors for Ryan, a longtime lead forecaster, Bill Gargan here. Want to introduce him. Actually, some of the name here, Bill, come on in to make sure you're able to. You might have to kneel down a little bit. But you know, some of the names that I had mentioned earlier, Rich Thompson, Roger Edwards, these are people who went to school with Bill, actually. And so this interconnected community, people who have each other's backs, teach one another, help each other out. That's really something so special about this field that we really cultivate here at the Weather Service in Topeka. And Bill, I'll let you talk a little bit more about your experiences.
The only thing I would suggest is don't be afraid to ask to volunteer at your local weather service, because I was kind of shy and I thought they were too busy, so I never made the effort. But I wish I would have back when I was in high school and maybe in undergraduate school. And I went to University of Michigan and University of Oklahoma for my master's degree, and I had great professors at both schools, and I really learned a lot. It was great.
That's great. So how long have you been there in Topeka?
I've been here for about 15 years.
Okay. All right. Oh, great. Yeah. It's so interesting to see the diversity of experiences you all have had. And now, so having been in the office for as long as you have, what are some of the big changes you've seen during your career? I'm sure you've seen a lot of differences in the hiring practices, who's getting in, and how important mentorship is in coming into the agency now.
Yes, we've kind of changed quite a bit from back when I first started. We would just use AFOS and we'd type our forecast, and we evolved into creating weather grids, and now we're into decision support and research, and we're encompassing all aspects of meteorology in our office, and it's really been fantastic. Just the amount of stuff we're doing now compared to when I first got in, and it was just basic typing your forecast and putting out warnings. But we do so much more. And the knowledge we gain from our Sue here, Ariel, just
tell us about that. How's that going?
Knowing the environment that you're warning in is so crucial, and we can determine the mode of the storm and if it's going to produce a violent tornado or if it's going to produce straight line winds or large hail, supercell. It could be HP or elevated. So just knowing your environment is very crucial. And we learn a lot from Ariel.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, learn a lot from everyone here. This is very much a team effort here. In fact, as Bill mentioned, violent tornadoes environmental analysis, one of the projects that Bill and Brian are mentoring Ryan on is looking at surface map archetypes associated with violent tornado patterns across portions of eastern Kansas, so that we can kind of use pattern recognition to identify favorable setups for violent tornadoes and message that information through IDSS to encourage more spatiotemporally, that's one of your words, Kim, precise and accurate violent tornado assessments. And so we all work together to do this. The program that Audra's worked so hard to really get going, bringing people together. It's a team effort. It's a community. It takes a village in order to accomplish this opportunity. So
yeah, definitely. And what you're talking about too, you're talking about trying to work in an area where there's been a lot of difficulty bridging research and operations. And it sounds like through the programs that you're pursuing here, you're actually making it happen, and you're working to do research that's really relevant to operations. Can you talk a little bit about that and just the process of what that bridging is really like for you all?
The process of bridging it's a very complicated process. It's a very interconnected process. one of the amazing things about working in the National Weather Service is that you're constantly evaluating this laboratory that you're watching all the time. You walk outside of the house, leave work, and so you're constantly surrounded by the foci that you're trying to forecast. And it's a really special thing, and it drives a lot of the research questions that we are trying to pursue in order to learn more about how to optimize the accuracy and precision of our forecast information. So as a result, we're able to leverage research questions from the operational world. One prime example I want to mention, and has been mentioned previously by John Hart and Ryan and others, is that statistical severe convective risk assessment model, or SCRAM, and that's something that we've been looking at a lot here. It's the creation of John Hart. He was gracious enough to include me years ago in working together as a team on developing the system and teaching it across the field, and it's been an honor to do that. And this system is identifying, based on past environments, the propensity for current environments to produce severe weather. Given similar environments of the past, what percent of the time are we getting severe storms occurring, and how can we use that information to translate forward in terms of near-term forecast probability of severe hail, wind, and tornadoes? And so by doing the research, by developing this model, publishing on this model, we can then evaluate it in the operational world and see how well near-term forecast information can really hone in on the precision of threats in terms of improving our ability to express threat assessment of hazardous weather. And we can really leverage the idea of enhanced messaging, the enhanced short-term weather outlook, something we've been experimenting here at Topeka, in terms of integrating that research and its findings and its system into a way to understand more about and express and message these threats for severe storms. Ultimately, a system like this, it's very much in an experimental mode. It's very much in an opportunity, provides an opportunity to investigate more about its capabilities, its guidance. It provides, we're learning about where it works well and where areas of improvement are possible. And so that nexus between research and operations, it's someplace that the Weather Service really can facilitate, and it's really a great chance to.
It's almost like the laboratory.
Exactly.
You're bringing research in and applying it,
and doing the research and then applying it. It's great.
And refining it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really exciting, guys. And I'm so glad that you guys could all come on the show this evening and share your experiences in research and in mentorship and show us, your career trajectories. I think it's really valuable for especially those in our audience who are interested in how this actually happens and just understanding some of the personality behind, the products, but also if they're interested in pursuing these careers themselves. So thank you all very much for your time tonight and for sharing those experiences with us. And is there any place that folks who are interested in reaching out for any of the materials or anything that was talked about tonight, can they reach your office for any follow-up questions? Okay.
Please contact us. I just want to make one final comment. I just encourage everyone out there, students, to have courage to reach out to people you don't know who can provide opportunities to foster these strong professional relationships, to professionals to be receptive to students who are going to one day be walking in your footsteps too. It takes courage and it takes a desire to all help each other out. We're all in this together, and let's all help each other out. Anything else from anyone, please?
I was going to say, from my standpoint, I was always complacent inside my, little, my safe space, I guess. But it's okay to step out of your comfort zone. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to get to know people who can potentially lead you, give you a path that'll lead you to, a great career. So please get out, go ask questions. You are not going to be shamed for it. We are very open and welcome to questions, and we're more than happy to answer.
And it's helpful for people to remember. Oh, sorry, I was going to say it's helpful for people to remember our agency, our field, not just the agency of the National Weather Service, but our whole field is so full of introverts. I think that I can't remember what the study was. The most common Myers-Briggs personality type is something like an INTP or something similar. So yeah, if you feel like this is hard, it's not just hard for you, it's hard for most everybody.
Yeah. If anything, it's just that friendly reminder of we've all been in those shoes. We've all been a student at one point in time, and we all know how challenging it is to step out and get that experience or try to get the foot in the door. And so this is our way to pay it forward. We've been there, we know the challenges, and we want to be able to help other promising meteorologists get their start in the field. We know it's very competitive, and so we want to do what we can to help get people started off their career on the right foot. So we're here to help.
So well put, Audra.
Yes,
exactly.
very good.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you again so much, guys. We really appreciate having the whole bevy of you, the forecast office in Topeka, Kansas, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again so much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yep. And moving on to, we're talking about probabilistic technologies and try to improve communication in the next couple hour time frame. The Scram model is one thing that's being developed to do that. But Ellen, you got the chance, and Aubrey, you got the chance this past week to look at another technology that's being developed to do something similar. Tell us just a little bit about what it was you were doing here this week, and what are some of your first blush impressions about what is probably coming down the pike for everybody?
Well, I have to say, I wasn't quite sure what to expect walking in to the National Weather Center there. And right out of the gate, we start with these test weather simulations. So it's like you're walking into a market and you're walking into a severe weather day, and they've given you these new products to use. So I think the first simulation that you gave us was like a bonkers severe weather day, and Aubrey and I get to do team coverage. Meanwhile, you guys, the researchers, are in the room with us documenting how we describe the products and the decisions that we use or that we made by using the products. And so I think there was about 8 of us crammed into the room, and then Aubrey and I working together, one on a social media desk and then one doing the live wall-to-wall coverage. And it was pretty intense, but so easy, I think, to start using. I actually had a line of storms, and some of them were severe, just yesterday moved through my market. And I kept thinking, I wish that we had these products available now. And so for everyone listening, they're called fee plumes. And so you get the probabilities of how likely it is that the current situation is going to continue forward into a certain direction. Or for like a tornado warning, how certain it is that this storm will produce a tornado. So I thought that that was just immeasurably helpful, because right now, I think everyone kind of looks at tornado warnings as the same. There's not really an easy way for the public to discern how different a tornado warning is from another, whether it's like a classic supercell one or like a quick marginal one. And so these fee plumes and these probability tools right away outline how likely it is that that storm is producing a tornado. So you can see really clearly, is this a slam dunk situation, or is this one where, it's still on the fence? And man, it was phenomenal. I love it. I miss it. Aubrey? I don't know if Aubrey's there.
Oh, she's muted.
Yeah. All right, here I am. So yeah, I definitely noticed a change in my tone today when I was talking about some storms, and we had some semi-severe storms, and really just how, and I mentioned this in the discussion with the SPC testbed, how dependent we are on reflectivity, and how, especially in areas where we have a lot of beam blockage and we don't have a lot of velocity data and other data, how important it is to look at that lightning and the winds, things that we can't see with traditional reflectivity, and how much more of the storm is out there. So these products really give you more confidence on the other aspects of a storm, especially with lightning, how probable or frequent lightning could be, how strong these winds could be, and how likely this is producing maybe a gust front that you can't see. So those products are just incredible. And I have to say, well, first of all, we're going to work with Helicity Designs on an Ira fee shirt with the plumes, which are kind of some of the graphics that they've been working with. So that hopefully will come out with the new products, the new T-shirt. But the absolute, it was very overwhelming to work in the Weather Center for a week in this amazing building, and to see the progression of, and just the absolute science being dedicated to these new products, behind the scenes on the social aspect with the communication and the graphical, and of course the technical side of everything, to see how things have all evolved and have come together, and this group of people who are really working to put out this great information is really incredible, and it's inspiring, and it's just so cool. And it's really difficult to actually now work without those new products, because you do get used to it, and you wish there was some secret little site that you could just kind of tap into, but there is not, unfortunately. But yeah, these products are really awesome, and I think they're really going to change the way we cover severe weather, and I do think that these are going to be instrumental in saving more lives. And I think that is the biggest thing is, we have to change our perception of severe weather, and we need to work with the public on changing that perception of severe weather. And I think these products really show several steps forward in the right direction to help do that.
I like that they're both like revolutionary and instinctual, because when we saw them for the first time, at first you're like, all right, this is overwhelming. And then the moment we started using them, I felt like it just became second nature. Okay, so here's where the tornado is. Here's how likely it is it's going to move forward. And as you're mentioning through the week, Kim, everyone has different thresholds. So if you're a hospital or something like that, and there's a 10% probability that a tornado is going to move over you, you're probably going to take very different actions than my dad, who is drinking a beer outside. He might watch it for a bit. So it really accounts for the fact that people have different thresholds for their own safety precautions, and it gives you that lead time, because a forecaster in the National Weather Service office is weighing a lot of things together before they issue that warning sometimes. And the fee plumes and the objects right away start showing you when that trend is increasing, whether this storm looks like it's really similar to past storms that have either produced a tornado or severe situations. And it kind of starts plotting it for you, giving you that forecast awareness. Also, something that blew my mind and Aubrey's mind, I'm pretty sure, is when it started plotting along the gust front.
Yes.
So we had this big storm one of the first days, and at first we were tracking the fee plumes that were launching out ahead of it, and then there started to be this fee plume that was moving off to the southeast,
And it was purely rectangular.
Yeah, and at first they were like, "Watch for bugs. There might be bugs." And so Aubrey and I are like, "Wait a minute, is this a bug? Because there's no reflectivity." And then we looked at each other and we're like, "Oh my gosh, it's a gust front." They do fee plumes for gust fronts. And it updates every 2 minutes. Like every 2 minutes, you're getting new information on this storm. And I can't even believe how much research and how many different cases you must have run through to get it to be so, I don't know, so quick to pick up those trends.
Yeah, that was incredible. And I think that was the cool thing. I was watching a storm today, and I'm like, I almost tweeted out, it's showing signs of intensity. And I'm like, but do I really, how do I really, am I seeing that? Am I really seeing that? But those products would give you, really show you those, little trends of intensity that you could pick up on, other than, checking 14 different things, and it's just, it really is a good product. And it, man, I'm still at a loss for words. I think my brain is mush.
Oh my gosh, mine is too.
They worked Ellen and I, yeah. So they did work us, but it was fun, and it was, what I hope it was as informative for you guys as I felt it was for us. I felt that I learned so much from these simulations and from these cases and from the communication. And that's something I'm still thinking about is, how am I going to communicate this? How do I want, what's the best way to communicate that? And it's something that I'm still thinking about.
Talk about that. How is that going to translate to the public? Number one, are these products going to be available to the public? And then what's going to go into, you must have researched this side of it. You're teaching us different messages for different people. So at some point, this is going to trickle down to the general population.
Well, we actually suggested that it be more of a National Weather Service product and something like the INWS chat with a login.
Yeah, what's the plan for these products, Kim?
Well, I mean, what's been fascinating to us was actually to capture the perspectives of the users, the emergency managers and the broadcasters are important translators of any forecast information. The Weather Service already, what we put out from the NOAA perspective, it's completely disseminated through, almost completely disseminated through private sector channels and through emergency management partners who are making decisions based on it. So this will be the same with this technology. You guys will have to make those choices. And so we wanted to see in the experimental environment, what is it that broadcasters and emergency managers do pass along to other people? So on one hand, you guys were using it for your own information to make your own kinds of judgments, but there was a different set of information that you then passed along. What we find is there's a mix of perspectives. There are some people who are very comfortable with numbers and who want to pass along very precise numeric information. And they'd get every 2-minute update and they'd say, oh, this has gone from being a 55% chance of a tornado to a 65% chance of a tornado. I'm going to convey that right now. And there were some people who were very uncomfortable using in numbers with that kind of granularity and with that frequency. And they would tone down the information and put maybe qualitative labels on it, like, well, there's a high chance or a medium chance or a low chance. And you don't see as much of the variability in numbers with that. You just kind of get this broad categorical brush. And there were other folks, I think like Aubrey, who took all that off altogether. And she just sort of used the visual cue of the plume without the numbers at all. So we're actually, the next phase of work for us is to give these folks what they're asking for. They want to know, what is it that the public can use? What would be best to pass along generally in like a sort of generic package? What are some best practices? And we need to do a little bit of work yet. The early work, though, that's been done with probabilistic information in forecasts is largely positive. The psychology research shows that people can make better decisions with probabilities than when they're not given them. And that's just for the simple, you're giving people more information so they can make better choices for themselves. But those are simplified decision experiments, and they've never been done with the kind of continual updating that this is going to be, and it can pose some unique challenges too. So that's our next frontier of work in the test bed, is actually, now that we've blown their minds and we're still working with the end users to try to figure out how to get this into their hands, we're going to be developing best practices for them and passing this along to the public.
So when you say partners or end users, does that include the weather company and Barron, who would then use these things for graphical products?
Absolutely. That's an enormous part of this. And I'm sad that Nate's not here. Nate Johnson actually was able to drop by. He was our first representative of a vendor group that those folks are going to be so instrumental. And you can tell us more about that. But the vendors determine so much of what you guys are able to put on the air. So we absolutely need to get those folks in so that we can talk about the technology and talk about some of our recommendations and try to produce together as a weather community, as a weather enterprise, produce together the right way to put this all out.
Let me play devil's advocate then. If you say that some people are more comfortable with numbers and others are less so, and if we put that out, then what will the message be to the broadcasters? Are we heading down the same path where we have different messages from different broadcasters based on what they decide individually?
That is such a we're opening Pandora's box here. That is a great question. And we already face this challenge. Think about even the cone of uncertainty, the hallmark marquee product of the National Hurricane Center. There are different versions of that thing put out, and there are some people who don't show it. They show instead the spaghetti models, and they show try to show the suite of different trajectories that a storm can take rather than this statistical abstraction of a cone. We have this in the tornado world where the Storm Prediction Center has their probabilistic outlooks, days ahead, their categorical outlooks, but the Weather Channel has Torcon, which is technically a mathematically equivalent thing, but they've scaled it to be very different. So it looks like it's inconsistent, but it's actually saying the same message. We don't know yet if this is problematic or if it's just something that offers to a number of different people, a number of different things you could seek. If you are someone who wants something a particular way, you can find a channel that will give it to you that way. So it could be a positive in that you can find exactly what you're looking for with more being offered. These are the big questions. The door is being opened now to explore them. And you haven't asked a very simple, straightforward something that I have a straightforward answer to. We're even just trying to grapple with that question. How do we answer it? It's a big one.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be really messy too, because again, certain broadcasters will take one path and then others will take another. And I guess
almost surely.
Yeah, one of the other things that y'all have taught us is that people are going to jump around, and that becomes, or does that become, a point of confusion, which I think is one of James's concerns, right?
Yes. I love this topic and I could talk about it for a long time, but we're getting so close to the newscast. We've got to stop. I hate to do this because the discussion is so good, but we've got to pause very quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do Professor Peters. We've got Tony Rice. We'll come back with the weather roundup, the picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
One of our WeatherBrains listeners, Keith, wrote in recently asking about a term he'd heard in a forecast discussion, Baroclinic. So I'll give a stab at explaining what that means. A quick trip to the glossary of meteorology published by the American Meteorological Society is often a good place to start, and it describes baroclinic as an atmospheric state in which density depends upon both temperature and pressure, and in which the geostrophic wind varies with height and is related to the horizontal temperature gradient via the thermal wind equation. A baroclinic state means that distinct air mass regions exist. This is where we find fronts separating warmer air from colder air. On the synoptic scale, in a baroclinic environment, there will be a polar jet in the vicinity of mid-latitude systems, along with troughs of low pressure and frontal boundaries. There are clear gradients in the density of the air in a baroclinic environment, defined by the sharp boundaries that we call fronts. A barotropic environment, on the other hand, means areas of uniform temperature distribution with an absence of fronts. The tropics are an excellent example of a barotropic environment with a uniform atmosphere devoid of fronts. Another way to look at this is to look at the isobars on a surface pressure map or the height contours on mid and upper level charts of the atmosphere. The air generally flows parallel to the isobars or height contours. If you add lines on the same map depicting the temperature or isotherms, when the isotherms parallel the contours or are said to be in alignment with them, then the atmosphere is considered to be barotropic. This means that as the air flows from one region to the next, the temperature of the air is not changing. When the lines of equal pressure or height and the isotherms do not run parallel to each other, the atmosphere is said to be baroclinic. Air flowing along the lines of equal height is either flowing from warm to cold or from an area of cold to warm. If the air is flowing from a region that is colder towards a warmer area, we say that cold air advection is taking place. If warm air is flowing into a region of cold air, then warm advection is occurring. Hope this helps, Keith, in your understanding of the atmosphere. Just like Keith, if you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
First, an update on Mars. The dust storm that began as a regional event in late May has gone global, or more precisely, a planet-encircling event. Dust storms aren't rare on Mars. This one, though, is particularly unusual because of its intensity and density. Atmospheric opacity is measured by the Greek letter tau. Raise e to the negative tau, and you get the percentage of light making it to the ground. Last we heard from the Opportunity rover on June 10th, the tau measurement was 10.8. That works out to 0.002%. Put another way, for every 100,000 photons of light that hits the top of that atmosphere, only 2 make it directly to the ground. Now, a few more photons are hitting Opportunity's solar panels due to scattered light from the ground and all that dust in the air, but not enough to produce sufficient power, at least for now. There's hope that the rover will begin generating power again once skies clear. And that blanket effect the dusty atmosphere provides will keep temps from dropping too low. That's not unlike the effect that overcast skies have overnight here on Earth. Recent studies of Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter data from 16 miles up suggest an interesting pattern. Storms tend to form in the Acidilia Planitia, about 50 degrees north latitude, roughly the Martian equivalent of the Canadian border. These storms then travel south across the equator to where opportunity roams the surface, growing into regional storms along the way. Several years' worth of observation and temperature data suggests that 2 additional regional large storms follow each Martian year. But these global events only happen about every 11 years. Like on Earth, these wind events are all driven by temperature and pressure differences that swing wildly from day to night and season to season on Mars. We're seeing evidence today on Earth of dust from the Sahara Desert spreading into the American Midwest. But we won't be seeing any global events here on Earth. Earth differs in a very important way: water. While Mars does have water ice clouds, the atmosphere is mostly very dry. Not so on Earth. When that dust hits moist air, you get rain and a general cleaning of the atmosphere. Elsewhere in the sky, while you wait for the 4th of July fireworks to begin on Wednesday night, look to the south for another show. Jupiter will be very high in the sky, due south around 9 p.m., with Saturn a little bit lower and in the southeast. If your festivities keep you outside past midnight, look for Saturn in the south and Mars following behind in the southeast. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
Recording the show on July 2nd. Time now to talk about weather across the fruited plain. And Kim, what's going on in Oklahoma this evening? How hot is it out there?
How hot is it? It's very hot. It was in the 90s today with a 75-degree dew point. So we had heat indices above 100. It was a pretty special day. But part of that is a sort of mixed blessing. We have that kind of a dew point temperature because we've had so much rain, and that will bode well for us probably later on throughout July and into early August, buffering us against the fire danger that's always so close to our minds. So yeah, it's pretty roasty here. How about out there? How you guys feeling?
Brian, a little steamy today, but temperatures were down because of clouds and showers.
Yeah, showers pretty numerous. I give thanks for that little upper level disturbance that has been slowly moving westward across the Gulf Coast. Thank you. But I guess we're back up into the lower 90s tomorrow. So
yeah, we were in the 70s at mid-afternoon today. Felt awfully nice. But, it's dew points are in the 70s. So, Kevin, I saw Dallas-Fort Worth hit 100 today. How'd you do there?
We did 104 today. And yeah, it's been a bad summer forecast-wise. It's kind of, I guess, what a lot of people call a dirty ridge. And these tiny little things that will pop a little cluster of thunderstorms are next to impossible to see, any time out. So we get them, I've just had, I think for the first time ever, a couple of times this June, I've actually put a 5% chance on a forecast on a graphic, as opposed to usually 10 would be minimum. But it's just been very, very difficult and wearying. But fall will come eventually, I suppose.
It will come. Ellen, what's happening in Michigan?
Hey, very comfortable. 84 degrees today. They're dew points. So it was nice. We had dew points in the 70s. Actually, we had our first 5-hour stretch of dew points near 77 in Grand Rapids. It was like the first time in 12 years that we had seen that. So it was neat. But better now. We had our first severe thunderstorm watch of the season yesterday, too, and a few storms. So pretty nice today.
Awesome. Aubrey, do you have time to do email? It's like 11 till the top of the hour.
I don't have my email open.
Yeah, I figured we're too late. We'll do a double next week. How about that?
Plus, I didn't check my email when I was gone last week, so it's kind of like.
And your equipment's iffy, blowing
Yeah,
up.
I've had both computers die on me calling WSI about 2 different issues today.
Hot mess.
So yeah, it's been it's been a hot mess for a welcome back.
On
Speaking
a
of
hot
hot mess.
July day. How hot is it?
It is hot. It's in the mid 90s. So we've had so much rain between May and June that it is just, I mean, the humidity, we just can't kick it. So we had 10 inches in May. When I left, we had 11 inches for June, and I know we got more. So I don't even know what our June total is, but it's a heck of a lot. So yeah, so we're just stuck in the humidity. But you know what? Our dew point today was like 65, which is high for us in the Shenandoah Valley. 65 is high here.
Quit bragging.
But we actually have heat advisories. You know, heat advisories are actually pretty untypical for the Shenandoah Valley because usually they're east of the Blue Ridge or into the Northern Virginia area. So we've actually had heat advisories. I had one today, have one tomorrow. I think we had a couple last week too. So the heat advisories are actually pretty untypical for us. So yeah, we're baking.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, Kim, I'm going to let you take the picks of the week here because I have to scoot. This little green shirt will not work on television. So, Kim, I'll let you ride us out of here with the picks of the week. Thanks.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, James. All right. So I'm going to go from left to right just on my screen here. Aubrey, what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is the National Park System. Ellen and I had some great adventures. And even though the national park that we went to in Oklahoma wasn't the most amazing adventure, it was still pretty cool. And just a reminder to get out and go check out the state parks, the national parks. And when you're exploring another area, check one out and see how far it is from you because, you know, an hour and a half drive is not that bad. And you could have a lot of fun. So check out the national parks and enjoy Mother Nature while doing it.
Here, here.
Wonderful advice, and you did all of that. I think you saw as much in your first week out here as I did in probably my first 6 months in grad school. So congratulations on your adventuring. That's a great pick. Brian, how about you?
Yes, one of the things I'm always concerned about this time of year is lightning fatalities. And so I'm going to have a link to the NWS lightning fatality statistics. And it's unfortunate, but we've already lost 5 people this year, and just about every one of them, as far as I can tell, were preventable. So it's one of those things that, you know, we just need to bring that number way down.
Yeah, definitely. Great pick. Ellen, did you happen to have time to put together a pick of the week?
Yeah, we had a really cool shelf cloud that was attached to a gust front and it went over Lake Superior. But what made it especially cool is the fact that it came so low to the surface. And I was talking to some of the meteorologists in the area, some of my good friends, and we were kind of theorizing. And we're pretty sure it's because it was just so humid both ahead of the gust front and behind. So when you got that mixing, it lowered the base to like right over the surface of Lake Superior. And it was a pretty neat video. Watch it come on shore. So
yeah, I saw that video. It was really remarkable. That's you look at that and you think, gosh, how does that happen and why does that not happen more? But yeah, it was probably that very special set of circumstances. Really, really cool pick. And Kevin, how about you? What's your pick of the week?
Well, I forgot to tell Ellen, if you have a link to that, Ellen, send it to email@weatherbrains.com. That way we'll all get it. Brian can put it in the show notes. I did the test with Ellen earlier and I didn't do my full job. My pick is only barely weather related, but it is weather related. The KVNX radar in northern Oklahoma went down a couple of days ago. And there was a lot of joking going around on Twitter because they said something, it was a very generic comment, but it suggested a very big failure on the part of the radar. And we were like, what's going on? But it turns out it is something called the bull gear, which, if I understand it correctly, is the gear that the whole thing sits on and turns the dish inside. I said, hey, to the Weather Service in the chat, we'd love to see some pictures of how that's going. And they don't have any of that yet, but if you're interested in knowing what a bull gear is and how you go about replacing one, the Norman folks sent me a link to pictures that were posted when the bull gear was worked on at one of the radars in Colorado. And I just thought that was pretty cool. It's actually quite a bit smaller than I would have thought, given when you look at a radar and how big it is, but it apparently failed. And it takes, it may take them a couple of weeks to get the thing fixed. So that's my
Wow.
Kevin, you have to lift the whole thing up inside the dome.
Right.
Not an easy task, so it does take a couple of weeks to do.
Yeah, but it only looks like it's like 3 feet or less across that
Yeah.
gear, and you think that's what turns the whole thing.
That's what turns the whole thing. Yep.
Something.
And they do wear out, unfortunately.
Right.
Oh, yeah. It's the reality of the equipment that we use. All right. Well, fun pick from you, Kevin. Thank you. And I'll wrap us up with my pick of the week. It's an article from the American Institute of Physics, which is a partner to the American Meteorological Society. They have these really wonderful policy briefs. I've shared a couple before, but this one is the status of federal funding from the House and Senate appropriators. They're the ones who set forward budget targets. And if you want to dig into some of the details about how Congress is feeling about the National Weather Service and weather research programs, the news is actually very hopeful. It's looking pretty good. They actually make special remarks again this year about wanting to see weather service vacancies filled and explanations for why they're not. And so there's a lot of interest on the Hill in supporting weather, which is really wonderful for us. So check out some of those details in that article.
I was going to ask one other thing before we go, and I'm sorry the Topeka people are gone, but I think most people that listen to this program know that I was James's first mentor, and I was wondering if maybe I could contact the Topeka people and see if I could have a do-over.
Oh, I'm so sad that James wasn't here for that.
Yeah.
And the answer to that question is no.
I'm done. Okay. I'm cooked.
You're done.
You're cooked. You went through the process. There's no undoing being a mentee of James Spann, I don't think.
Well, I'll just say this to all the people who came after me. You're welcome, because he took out all the bad things on me.
Oh, I love that.
Ooh, green screen. All right. Well, with that, any other comments or thoughts from the panelists this evening?
Yeah, just one final one. I wanted to let Kevin know that I'm no longer featuring 104 years of tracking. I changed my picture to a nice lightning bolt
Fantastic.
over the lake.
Okay. You can stay and you can come back again another time.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ellen, for joining us this evening, and thanks to all the panelists.
So good to see you guys.
Good seeing you again, Ellen.
Yeah.
Hey, Ellen, how many people was that you said with 104?
5.
Oh, I think between James and I, we have 104.
Okay, so this is why I have that picture as my cover photo. Have you ever been with your family to like a pretty subpar place, like a petting zoo or something, but your mom makes you take a picture and it turns out to be like a really good picture of the family, and then it like goes and it's framed, but it's like, a trip to the petting zoo.
Sure.
Same thing as the Super Bowl ad, and it's just a really nice family picture. Looking nice.
And I went and ruined it for you, didn't I?
I'll just crop the 104 out. Nah, I like
That's typical, Kevin.
That's it. That's my place in life. All right, y'all. I got a show to do. See you.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye, Kim. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So we thought we'd just tinker with it. So one of the things we do after that, we go back and do a weather update. And to make matters even more complicated, we have another live stream going on in here. This is where we do WeatherBrains. And if you're watching WeatherBrains, hello. We are simulcasting on Instagram and YouTube right now. There's so many bytes floating around here in the air. So a great show tonight. Had their folks in the National Weather Service in Topeka, Kansas. That was fun. They were awesome. And great to hear the experience out with the test bed. But thank you guys for watching on WeatherBrains. We'll see you all next Monday night. You'll have a great